Chapter 35. After checking into the hotel, Carrie and Dr. Thurston had time to visit a few places on their list. Carrie was in no hurry to revisit the senator's home, so they decided to go to the temporary agency first. Carrie, having been there before, gave Dr. Thurston the directions. Carrie pushed the button for the 14th floor, and as the elevator rose, she said, "Wait till you meet these people. They're dressed for Halloween. The receptionist has fire engine red hair, and the manager, well, you'll see for yourself." The bell beeped and the doors opened. Carrie and Dr. Thurston stepped into the hall. As they approached the office, Carrie realized something was terribly wrong. She ran to the door and stared through the small window that ran the length of the door. "This is all wrong. The place is empty." She turned and looked at Dr. Thurston as though asking for guidance. "Hey," he said, "if the lady is dead, why would she need a real company? Maybe it's a ghost company, just like she's a ghost researcher." "They were here, honest. This is where Thomas and I came that day. Look, they even took the name of the company off the window. There's an impression here where it used to be. You can still read the name." "Well, well, well, so ghosts do leave footprints." "Will you be serious?" she snapped, pushing her face harder against the window. "You can smash your face all you want to, Carrie, but you won't pass through that glass. Come on, let's go talk to the building manager. A real ghost would not even surprise me on this case anymore." When they reached the lobby, Dr. Thurston realized there wasn't a main office for the building management. "Stay here a second," he told Carrie. He walked into the first office he saw and came out a few minutes later. "I've got to call a number. Seems they don't have local management here on staff." "Great. So now where to?" Carrie was starting to get depressed. "Let's go visit the senator's home, and you can call this number on the way." Chapter 36. Agent Snyder stood in the National Sanctuary Hall of the Capitol building, not knowing where to start. He studied the statues for a few minutes and listened to the various conversations of tourists. Two individuals were talking about a senator in Colorado and his recently released agenda. It was obvious they were not happy. They were scheduled to testify about their concerns in front of a Senate committee that afternoon. "Agenda!" Snyder yelped out loud. People turned and looked at him, wondering if he was speaking to them. "Damn, can't believe I didn't think of that myself." He smiled and nodded at them to say thanks and darted for the deceased senator's office. The stairs would be faster, but he would need a pass, so he headed for security first to get a clearance, which was close to the elevators. Standing in the senator's office, a young woman approached the gentleman who had just disturbed her quiet sanctuary. "May I help you?" she asked, standing very erect with the utmost of professionalism. "Yes, ma'am, you can." He flashed his FBI badge. "I need to know what agendas the senator was working on before his death." Some of them are classified, and I cannot release them without the proper authority," she stated, clasping her hands and standing her ground. "I see." He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "Will this help?" She unfolded the paper and read it over. "This is a general search order, Agent Snyder. I don't see how this gives you authority to review any of the deceased senator's files." "Excuse me, what is your name?" "Karen Tucker." Snyder was beginning to lose his patience. "Miss Tucker, if I feel it necessary, I can have you arrested right now. So we can either do this together or I can do it alone. Which do you prefer? You know perfectly well this order gives me the authority of the highest classification to review any and all documents that were in the senator's possession. We can do this the easy way or we can do it your way. Which will it be?" She refolded the paper and handed it back to him. "Fine," she snapped. "This way." Snyder was led to a file room, and as Ms. Tucker dialed the combination to the safe, he felt that maybe, just maybe, he was getting somewhere. She removed a logbook and asked Snyder to sign his name. "No problem, ma'am," he said as he entered his name, the date, and his reason for reviewing the files. He even added the number of his general search warrant, which was signed by a federal magistrate. The first few files revealed nothing overly exciting, but the next few were more than interesting. They were mind-grabbing. What an idea, he said to himself. What a bastard, too. This would put many senators at risk of not being re-elected for another term. This man was a real character, all right. Snyder began to fill up his notebook, but felt it would be better if he had copies. He looked around the room but didn't see a copier. He grabbed the files he was interested in and went looking for Miss Tucker. He found her at the desk talking on the phone. As he approached, she hung up. "So are we calling in reinforcements?" Snyder asked, his internal alarm going off. No problem. I'm about done." He now knew it would be safer to fax the information directly to his office instead of carrying the copies out. "Where's your fax machine?" "Over here." She escorted Snyder to one of the closed rooms with a fax machine and a copier. With all the dark wood, the offices had a feel of wickedness about them. He dialed the number and slipped the pages through one at a time, keeping his eyes on the outside door. He kept wondering when the backup troops would crash his fax party. Once finished, he went back to the file room, shoved the files into the cabinet, and slammed the drawer shut. He grabbed his notebook and said his goodbyes to Miss Tucker. He was ready to get out of there and back to safer grounds. As he headed for his car, Snyder kept an eye open for anyone approaching, but he felt he was being watched, and he hated that feeling. Chapter 37. Agent Owens and Edwards walked through the parking lot, holding their new toys in their hands stretched out in front of them. Their eyes were glued to the small green light. "This is really stupid," Owens finally said. "We must look like idiots." Thomas laughed. "We sure do. I don't know what we're expecting from these little boxes." The two men grinned at each other and shoved the devices into their coat pockets. Thomas hit the unlock button on his key ring, and the two plopped into their car. Thomas tossed his hospital brown bag onto the back seat. As he turned the key in the ignition, the small devices in their pockets beeped. They looked at each other in total shock and immediately darted from the car as though they were expecting an imminent explosion. They simultaneously grabbed their devices out of their jacket pockets and stared at the little blinking red light. They walked to the rear of the car, and the beeping continued. They walked down 2 more cars. The beeping finally stopped, and on popped the little green all-clear light. "That scared the shit out of me," Owens laughed, out of breath, his hands still shaking. "Me too," Thomas said, chuckling. "I guess this means my car is definitely bugged." "I think so." Both agents walked slowly back toward the car, their eyes fixated on the small devices. After a few steps, the devices began beeping again, and the little red lights flashed furiously. They stepped backwards until the green lights reappeared and the beeping stopped. "Well, we now know how they work." "So now what?" Owens asked. "We drive back to the office and talk about how ugly our boss is." "Loudly," Thomas said, smiling. They clicked off their new toys, placed them back in their pockets, and hopped into the car. The engine was still running because Thomas had jumped out so quickly he had forgotten to turn the car off. He was silently glad that it wasn't in gear. On the ride back to the office, the agents gossiped about everyone they could think of and made up stories about who was sleeping with whom and about which agents were trying to get other agents in trouble. It was hard not to laugh, but they sure were enjoying themselves immensely as the time flew by. Chapter 38. Carrie dialed Maxine Thornton's number and was not surprised to find it was no longer in service. "What did you expect?" the doctor asked. "I must admit that this case has been interesting. I've never had to track down a dead person before. I've been asked to profile some very interesting people, but never a dead one." Carrie stared out the window. "What are you thinking?" Thurston asked. "I think this case isn't a case at all. I think we were assigned to run in circles, just like Thomas said. And if that assumption is correct, then we need to change our course of action and go after the ones making us chase our tails." "Interesting thought, but how do you know who you can trust? Can you even trust me?" Carrie glanced back at Dr. Phillips Thurston and knew he was right. How could they trust anyone? As the two pulled into the senator's driveway, Thurston remarked, "Wow, what a spread. How can a senator afford this place?" "That was our question, too." That's why I came back here. That's funny. The gates were locked the last time we were here." They parked at the front steps, and as they climbed the stairs to the door, Carrie felt instinctively that something wasn't right. They rang the bell, but no maid answered this time. "I'll bet they moved out," Carrie said, trying to peep into the window, which was about 4 feet above her head. "So soon?" Thurston asked. They walked around the house but found nothing except windows that were too high to look into. Defeated, they headed back to the car. Then Carrie came alive. "Let's try the tunnels," she said, and darted down the drive toward the front gate. "Hey, wait up!" the doctor yelled from behind. He followed Carrie through the overgrown bushes and into the small shed. As they walked through the tunnel, he finally asked, "What kind of a place is this?" "A strange place." They reached the end with the 3 stairs. "Look," Carrie said, "you go that way. It leads to the kitchen. Just push the mops out of your way. I'm heading straight up. I'll meet you downstairs by the front door." He shook his head and climbed the stairs that led to a small door. He had to pull the door open, which he felt was a little dangerous, since it made him squeeze around the door while trying to maintain a balance on the stairs. He also thought it odd that there were no insects, not even a tiny spider. He ducked into the small room. It was empty. "Where are the mops?" he asked out loud as he stumbled back into the lighted room. The kitchen was also empty. No dishes, no food, not even one dish rag. The curtains had all been removed, and the place was spotlessly clean. He walked through the downstairs and found the same throughout the entire first floor. The house had been cleared. Carrie was yelling from somewhere upstairs, and they soon met in the foyer. "This place is beautiful," Thurston remarked. She was frowning. "Yeah, but it's also empty. Seems that every place we go lately is," he said as they walked through the downstairs a second time, hoping they had missed something. "I wonder where they went." "I think I'll call the senator's office," Carrie said as she flipped through the saved numbers on her cell phone. Miss Mosher picked up on the 3rd ring. "Yes, ma'am, this is Agent Clark of the FBI. We met a few weeks ago." "Yes, ma'am, I understand. Could you please tell me what happened to the senator's family? They seem to have moved." "I see. Could I have their new numbers?" Another pause as Carrie tried to write down a number on her pad while holding her cell phone against her ear with her shoulder. "Thank you, Miss Mosher. I appreciate the help. Carrie clicked the off button and looked up at Dr. Thurston. "You're not going to believe this, but the family moved back to their farm over 100 miles from here." "Well, we can't do a surprise visit because Miss Mosher will tip them off. Perhaps we should visit the family lawyer. Didn't I hear something about a family lawyer?" "Yes, you did, and a good idea. Let's go." She laughed as they walked through the vacant house. "But he's probably either dead, retired, or moved his office." Suddenly she stopped dead in her tracks. "Wait a minute. Come on," she yelled, turning back and running up the stairs. "I just thought of something." "Where are we going?" he asked, chasing after her. "I want to check something out." Once upstairs, she darted around the corner into the master bedroom. "Good. The curtains are still here. Help me close them," she yelled, struggling with the long, heavy draped fabric. The ceilings were very high, at least 14 feet, and the curtains were hanging from the ceiling to the floor. As they pulled the double-backed heavy curtains shut, they immediately blocked out the day's light. "Now close the doors," she urged him, as he closed first the outside door that led to the hall, then the bathroom door. The room grew dark. "Now what? Now what?" he asked, feeling stupid, standing in a pitch-black room. Their eyes finally adjusted, and Carrie yelled, "My God, Philip, look at your feet!" "Holy shit," he hollered as he jumped halfway across the room. Where he had just stood, luminol glowed brightly. The glow was so brilliant it gave the illusion of lighting the whole room. There was a large pool of blood where you were just standing, Carrie said, but nowhere else. He must have started feeling bad and headed for the toilet just like I thought he would. Look, there's an impression of the bed and the carpet. See how close it was? Also, look around. There's no blood on the walls, so he must have lost bowel control here. She opened the bathroom door, and the light hit them in the eyes, instantly making them squint. "Damn, can't see a thing in here," she said. grab some curtains from the other rooms. They headed out of the bedroom and returned shortly carrying heavy curtains which they hung over the bathroom windows. They stood back to admire their work. "Well," Thurston said, "we won't win any awards for home decorating, but this might work." He closed the bathroom door and flipped off the lights. Again the luminol glowed brightly. "Damn!" Carrie exclaimed. "He had to have bled all over the place." "My God, poor bastard. It must have been awful." "I'll get the camera," Thurston said, holding back the need to puke. Chapter 39. As Owens and Thomas entered the office at Ultratrans Corporation, Agent Snyder was busy organizing the facts he had sent himself from the senator's office. "Boy, do I have a story to tell you two." Thomas handed Snyder his device. "Here's a present." "What in the hell is this?" Snyder asked. Then he watched as Owens walked around the room, staring at his device. "And what is he doing?" "Oh, just checking for bugs," Owens said nonchalantly. "This is a little toy we got from Mickey. It beeps and the red light blinks whenever it detects a listening device. It's pretty cool." "How do we know it works?" Snyder asked. "Oh, we know," Owens answered, checking out the rest of the room. "Long story, but make sure you keep it on when you leave this room," Thomas added. "Sure," Snyder said, cramming the item into his pocket. "Now look at what I've got. I think I know why the senator was killed." Thomas held up his hand to quiet Snyder. "Owens, anything yet?" "It seems clear." Thomas turned back to Snyder. "Go for it." The agents sat down around the table facing each other, and Snyder began. "Well, I didn't know where to start, so I went to the Capitol building to visit the senator's official office. I was just sitting on the outside steps, minding my own business, when a little kid came up to me. He told me that my answers were in the building behind me. It was strange." Owen laughed. "So we're listening to kids' psychics now?" "Ha ha. So I walked into the Great Hall and still didn't know what to do when I overheard two guys complaining about a senator's agenda. Then it hit me. Maybe our senator was working on something that really pissed someone off, and look at what I found." He pushed some of the papers at the other two agents. "Look," Snyder said sternly. "He was working with an insurance company." "Okay, and your point is?" Thomas asked. Both agents stared at Snyder like he had completely lost it. Snyder sighed, then stood and paced the room. "Hear me out. The people want a good health structure in place, right? I mean, the country has been fighting for managed health care for years. I believe it started back in the 90s. Most people don't care where it comes from. They just want to be able to see a doctor when they get sick and not have to pay an arm and a leg for it. The insurance companies don't care about us. They just want their premium payments, a constant flow of money coming in. Most of the insurance companies don't want to pay claims, and they fight almost everyone." "Get to the point," Owen said, staring at the papers. "All right, I'll put it in plain English. The senator was working with one insurance company to push the others out. One insurance company to insure everyone in the U.S. It would replace Medicare. They'd receive their premiums directly from the government, and the payments would be deducted from our salaries or retirement checks. This insurance company would have the power to rule the country by having the authority to decide what type of medical facilities would be built or stay in business, what research would be conducted, if any, and who would receive treatment. It would be the Hitler era all over again, but this time people wouldn't see it coming. Look, I found this too. The head of the insurance company was found dead about a week after our senator, and what's really disturbing, they're not sure what killed him. I'll bet if an autopsy is done, we'll find the same poison. I just have this awful hunch." "I still don't get it," Owen said. "I kind of do," Thomas said. "Are you saying that our government, in conjunction with this insurance company, was planning to control people by maneuvering their health coverage? I guess we are controlled somewhat by our little health cards. If you have a medical card and have a heart attack, you live. If you don't, you die. Makes sense." Snyder continued. "This insurance company stood to make billions. They'd even be able to tell hospitals and medical professionals what they could and could not charge. It's all in these papers." He paused and added, "I'll bet they were even paying the senator." would explain the lavish lifestyle, Thomas agreed. But if this is all true, then our government would somehow have to be involved, Owens pointed out. So why bump him off? Part of our government may be involved. Maybe, maybe not, Thomas said, nodding. What if one agency realized how corrupt another agency was and tried to put a stop to it? Or what if our senator was acting alone? My dollars are on the bet that our government had something to do with it, or with the cover-up. After all, we're being tracked. My car was bugged, wasn't it? Really? Bugged? Snyder asked. Really, Thomas answered. Guys, I think this case is going to be much bigger than any of us ever imagined. Chapter 40. Carrie and Dr. Thurston stood in the lavish lobby of the law firm of Wilshire, Smith & Token. The scene from the 40th floor gave the visitor a bird's-eye view of the beautiful city of Columbus. Thurston thought of the power that was displayed to the person standing there from this angle. Just like the hawk, these lawyers would swoop down on their innocent victims, and then wham, it would be too late. "Excuse me," a soft voice asked, awakening Thurston from his deep thought. "Are you waiting for Mr. Wiltshire?" "Yes," Carrie said, wondering what the doctor was thinking about so intensely. "He will see you now. Please follow me." The shy young lady escorted the two agents through the massive halls to Jack Wilshire's office. And what an office it was! It was huge, with high ceilings, oriental rugs, and Victorian furniture. Jack Wiltshire held out his hand. "Please come in. Good to see you again, Carrie. How's your investigation going?" She shook his hand and took a seat. Thurston followed her example. "This is Dr. Philip Thurston," she said. "Good to meet you, sir," Mr. Wilshire said, without offering his hand. "Now, what can I do for you, Carrie?" he asked, ignoring Thurston standing in front of him. Carrie figured this was Wiltshire's way of maintaining control of the situation. She didn't wait for any more formalities. "What happened to the senator's family? Why did they move?" "His wife had a mental collapse. Between the police, the FBI, and the news reports, she just couldn't take any more. So her sons decided to sell the large estate and move their mother to more comfortable surroundings. The family spent most of their time on the farm anyway, and the boys felt it would be better for their mother's overall mental and physical health." "Why, is there a problem with that?" he asked. "No, I was just concerned. This case has shown a very strange face, and I just like to keep track of people, that's all." "What do you want with the family again?" the lawyer asked. "To be honest, I was asked to gather information on the senator's financial records. I haven't been able to find anything at his office or D.C. apartment, so I thought they might be at his home." "I see. Well, we may be able to help you there. I have all of his records, and you're welcome to browse through them. Please, do not take anything with you. Make a copy. I just can't afford to lose any of his records. I'm trusting you, Carrie." Jack Wilshire stood to escort the two agents out. "And please, unless it is absolutely necessary, leave the senator's family alone. Go through me?" "We understand, Mr. Wilshire," Carrie said. "I'll make sure we go through you, and yes, I would like to see those files." "Thank you, and it was nice to meet you, Dr. Thurston." The agents were escorted to a room filled with the deceased senator's files, and they spent the remainder of the afternoon making copies and taking notes. By the time they were finished, Carrie was happy with her findings. It seems that the senator had been receiving large donations from an insurance company to assist in his campaign. But what was very interesting to Carrie was not the fact that the senator never claimed this money on his taxes. It was the fact that the IRS never asked questions about it either.